Palestine, the Israeli army carried out a new large-scale attack on the Kamal Adwan Hospital in the city of Beit Lahaya. On Sunday, the United Nations World Food Programme denounced Israel for blocking 98% of requests for food and humanitarian aid deliveries to northern Gaza. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump threatens to strip Panama of its canal if the Central American country does not reduce the fees it charges Washington for its use. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Palestine, the Israeli army carried out a new large-scale attack on the martyr Kamal Adwan Hospital in the city of Beit Lahaya in the northern Gaza Strip. According to official reports, the health center was subjected to a strong aggression without prior warning, using bombs and artillery shells causing massive damage. In this regard, medical personnel reported that the Israeli army surrounded the hospital with drones loaded with explosives and used loudspeakers announcing that they would bomb the area and urged everyone to enter the building. At the same time, the Israeli forces kept firing directly at the door of the medical center, causing panic among patients and medical personnel. The Israeli occupation forces killed at least 32 civilians in the Gaza Strip after committing 4 new massacres against Palestinian families in the last 24 hours. Health authorities report that the Israeli attacks also left about 54 wounded. They also warned that both figures could increase since several of the victims are trapped under the rubble and others are scattered on the roads of the bombed areas. In this context, authorities denounced that the Zionist regime continues to prevent the entry of emergency services to these areas. Since October 7, 2023, Israel has killed at least 45,259 Palestinians, mostly women and children. And on Sunday, the United Nations World Food Programme denounced Israel for blocking 98% of requests for food and humanitarian aid deliveries to northern Gaza. This situation has persisted since October, when the genocidal troops intensified their criminal operations against thousands of civilians on that side of the Strip. According to the agency, 101 requests have been sent to the occupier to authorize the entry of this vital assistance. Only 2% of these requests have received a positive response. The situation in the north of the Palestinian enclave has been described by the United Nations and various humanitarian organizations as catastrophic. And the Security Council agreed to extend the monitoring mission on the separation between Syria and the Israeli-occupied Golan after passing a resolution warning of the activities of the Zionist regime in the area. The world's highest peace body recalled that both sides must abide by the terms of the 1974 disengagement agreement between Israel and the Syrian Arab Republic and scrupulously observe the ceasefire. In this context, according to the Security Council, military activities by any actor in the buffer zone continue to have the potential to increase tensions between Israel and the Arab Republic. The organization also stated that this could also jeopardize the ceasefire between the two countries and pose a risk to the local civilian population and UN personnel on the ground. And despite the calls from the United Nations Security Council, the Israeli occupation forces have established 7 permanent military positions along the so-called line of withdrawal in southern Syria. In this context, after terrorist groups overthrew the Syrian executive, Israeli troops seized the occupied Golan. This regarding the historic agreements and the warnings. They have established posts at strategic points, including those guarding Damascus, Dara, and Quneitra. The occupiers' forces have so far seized almost 500 square kilometers of Syrian territory. And in Yemen, at least 3 attacks were reported on the installations of the Ansarullah movement located in the capital Sana'a. After the attacks in the Yemeni capital, the media reported that the offensives were carried out by U.S. aircraft. They also say that 2 attacks were launched against the Jabal Atan missile base south of the capital. Reports indicate that the attacks were directed not only against military bases but also against the headquarters of the Ansarullah movement. And U.S. President-elect Donald Trump threatens to strip Panama of its interoceanic canal if the Central American country does not reduce the fees it charges Washington for the use of the canal. Trump issued a firm threat to Panama and the administration of the canal through a statement published on his social medias, arguing that former U.S. President Jimmy Carter gave the canal to Panama for $1 during his term. Through this intimidation, Trump seeks to strip Panama of the administration of this interoceanic waterway, considering the canal as a vital asset for the United States and qualifying the passage of the administration to Panamanian hands as an act of generosity by Washington. Trump also reiterated his government's interest in the operation of the Panama Canal, adding that they will not allow it to fall into the hands of others. For some context, it's important to know that the Panama Canal Zone, established in 1903 through the Haibuna-Varela Treaty, was a U.S.-controlled territory that existed until 1979. Despite its strategic importance for global shipping, the Canal Zone became a point of contention between the U.S. and Panama, leading to growing nationalist sentiments among Panamanians. The Torrijos-Carter treaties of 1977 initiated a gradual transfer of control back to Panama, culminating in full sovereignty by December 31, 1999. Today, the Panama Canal remains a crucial maritime route, having undergone expansions to accommodate larger vessels while continuing to play a vital role in international trade. We now have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Venezuela, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ivan Hill, received the copies of the letter of credence of the new Spanish ambassador to Venezuela, Álvaro Albacete, appointed to the post by the Council of Ministers of the Spanish government. Venezuelan Foreign Minister conveyed to the Spanish diplomat the desire of the Bolivarian government to strengthen relations of mutual respect between both parties, always in accordance with the principles established in the Charter of the United Nations. He also ratified a willingness to expand economic cooperation in various areas of common interest and sent a message of greetings and solidarity to the entire Spanish community residing in Venezuela. For his part, the new ambassador of Spain in Venezuela previously served as Chief of Staff of the Spanish Minister of Culture, a position he has held since November 2023. The Piura municipality in northeastern Peru reported that the Las Capullanas beach has been affected by an oil spill that negatively impacts the biodiversity of the area. Residents reported that several species, including crabs and octopus, are covered with oil and called on the company responsible to take immediate action to contain the pollution. In this respect, Mayor Ricardo Bancayan recalled that nature is the greatest wealth of the area and that this type of act cannot go unpunished. Bancayan also expressed his solidarity with the fishermen and families that depend on these waters. The Environmental Evaluation and Control Agency is monitoring the area. In Bolivia, a mission of experts from the Special Rapporteurship on Economic, Social, Cultural, and Environmental Rights of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights is investigating the forest fires that damaged almost 10 million hectares this year. The correspondent, Freddy Morales, with the details.
The mission began its work at the express invitation of the government of President Luis Arce and is carrying it out in the sites that were devastated by the fire.
We are making contact with civil society organizations, with all interested actors, with the communities that have been affected, preparing a report that will develop recommendations and observations based on inter-American human rights standards.
The fires this year were of such magnitude that the national government declared the country in a catastrophe situation.
The fires of 2024 had a devastating impact on the economic, social, and cultural rights of the affected communities. According to UNICEF, polluting smoke particles aggravated respiratory diseases, especially in children under 5 years of age. Water sources contaminated by ash affected access to drinking water, while school interruptions left thousands of students without regular access to education.
During the entire burning process, which began in March and lasted until September, the government denounced that the traditional use of the land for clearing fields was exploited to generate large fires for political and economic purposes.
Progress is being made towards the classification of a criminal offense of between 7 and 10 years for those who cause forest fires. But the key issue is who the culprits really are, and here progress must be made, not only in methodology, but also in equipment and human capital necessary for the forensic investigation, to determine with certainty who the culprits are.
It was alleged that fires were set for political purposes to create problems and discredit the government, and economically, to claim ownership of state lands raised by fire, resulting in multiple damages in the millions of dollars.
Forest fires in one way or another affect people's freedom, for example, the right of a family to a dignified, healthy life. The smoke that has been emitted as a result of this has had health consequences. Let us not forget the right of children and young people to study. In some cases they have had to suspend school and academic work. Also the right of indigenous peoples to freedom of movement, to have their daily sustenance.
Official reports speak of almost 10 million hectares burned this year, of which 60%, some 6 million hectares, were forests considered virgin, inside and outside natural parks. The report on the investigations entrusted to the specialized agency of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights could be known next February.
Freddy Morales, teleSUR, Bolivia.
We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Russia, the air transport agency Rosaviatsia imposed temporary restrictions at the airport of the city of Gaza after attacks by Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles in the area. In a statement issued on its Telegram channel, the agency announced temporary restrictions on the operation of the airport to ensure the safety of civilians' flights. In this regard, the press service of the head of the Republic, Rustam Minnikhanov, reported that 8 Ukrainian drones were attacked in different areas, causing fires in a residential complex. He also stressed that there were no deaths or injuries caused by the attacks. The advances on the front line of the Russian armed forces do not stop. The course of the Russian army in the special military operation is imminent and obvious, but above all, unstoppable.
In recent weeks, and at a faster pace this year, Russian armed forces have advanced along the entire front line, seizing control of settlements and towns with little resistance from the Ukrainian army. Kyiv is taking steps to increase the size of its army, including the forced mobilization of citizens and lowering the age of military service in an effort to respond to the Russian advance, all with no result other than loss of life.
Todo sin más resultado que pérdidas de vidas humanas.
Today I posted a video on my Telegram channel where relatives complain that 75% of the military personnel are missing. They are people whose bodies for some reason have not been presented, but also officially there is talk of dead, and there are many. There are also many wounded who are left without legs and arms, and there are minor injuries, but 75% missing. This is huge losses.
The West is pressuring Kyiv to fight to the last Ukrainian. But despite substantial financial support, Ukrainian troops with foreign military have suffered heavy losses, estimated at around 1 million dead and wounded Ukrainians and mercenaries, as well as a significant amount of military hardware.
Despite the enormous help from the West, the initiative on the line of contact is in our hands, and the Russian troops are conducting an offensive along the entire front. This year, more than 190 villages have been liberated, and about 4.5 thousand square kilometers of territory have been brought under control.
Even the Western media, which tends to question Russian reports, have acknowledged the advance of Russian troops in the region and can no longer disguise the disastrous situation on the Ukrainian front.
Our commander gave us the order to round up all Ukrainian-speaking civilians and not to touch them, to let them go. But we were to shoot those who spoke Russian. This was his specific order. It was the order, and there were no other options. Only this way. No, they would shoot us, but the treatment is terribly cruel. We were beaten with sticks even for holding the machine gun wrong, or if you refuse to kill someone.
As Russian troops advance, Ukrainian troops retreat, leaving destruction and death in their wake. More and more cases of massacres and brutalities committed against civilians are uncovered. Kyiv is using only terrorist methods, which once again justifies and explains the need for Russia's special military operation against this regime that does not represent the Ukrainian people.
No representa al pueblo ucraniano. Oleg Yasinski, teleSUR, Moscow.
In Turkey, at least 4 people lost their lives after an ambulance helicopter crashed into a hospital in the southwest. Local media report that the accident occurred after the aircraft took off in dense fog next to the training and research hospital in the city of Mukla. The 4 people killed were on board the helicopter, 2 of whom were health workers. Authorities added that no one was injured in or around the building. In the United Kingdom, thousands of people gather at the ancient monument of Stonehenge to greet sunrise on winter solstice, the Northern Hemisphere's shortest day of the year. Spectators cheered and applauded as the sun rose over the Neolithic site in southwest England at the winter solstice, a pagan celebration that is believed to have been observed for thousands of years. Druids and those wearing folk dress were among the 4,500-strong crowd marking the beginning of the day. It is one of the few days of the year when visitors are allowed to touch the stones, which are situated on the alignment of the midsummer sunrise and the midwinter sunset. The Neolithic circle of giant stones has been a source of wonder and mystery for almost 5,000 years.
So one of the amazing things about Stonehenge, it's built on a solstice alignment. So twice a year, the sun shines right in and then sets as well. So in the summer, the sunrise comes up and shines right into the circle. But what we think is more important is in the winter, if you stand in the center of the circle, you can watch the sunset going down to the southwestern horizon. And we think that might have been more important for the people that built Stonehenge, because it's like the turning of the year. They were farmers, they were agriculturists, and they were growing their own food and keeping animals, and they probably knew that the days were going to get longer, the weather would get better, their crops would grow again. And so from the darkness, light would come. Yes, just when we think we know as much as we can about Stonehenge, something else comes up. And in the summer, it was discovered that one of the stones, called the altar stone, we don't know if it ever stood up like an altar the way we would think of it today, but it's right in the centre of the circle. And it was discovered that it has come from northeast Scotland, which is over 700 kilometres further north than Stonehenge. So that is quite amazing.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.